of course, APA formatting is a wonderful thing, kind of the bane of all of our existences. But one of my pet peeves is that a lot of the, when you're using a citation generator, a lot of the times if they can't find the author, they'll put in the title. And they're like, the title is the way that you should do this. And I'm like, no, that is wrong. And the reason for that is that if this is done by some sort of organization, the organization is the author. So like something that comes from the Mayo Clinic, oftentimes it won't say this is done by Dr. Geist, right? Instead, it doesn't have an author, it might say Mayo Clinic staff. And in that case, the Mayo Clinic is your author. So that is supposed to be the very first thing. So I never want to see a title as the first thing in a citation. 90% of the times you can find the organization. That goes for the CDC, the National Institutes of Health. Basically, a lot of these big organizations will have a staff writer do it. And just make sure that you write the organization first. That goes for both your in-text citations and your reference page. They should start the same way. So it should say Mayo Clinic, in text and in your reference page. How many quotes should I have in my paper? Well, ideally it would be none. I think it would be really wonderful to not have a single quote in your paper. You just summarize everything and you still give proper attribution, so you give that citation, but ideally you shouldn't have that many quotes. If you're using, 5 words that came from somebody else in a row, use the quotes, right? Add your quotation marks. I'd rather you know to use those rather than get dinged for plagiarism, right? But it's much more sophisticated for you to summarize those quotes in your own words. Another thing I often see is when you're writing your paper, we will often use the title of our paper inside the sentence, and that is not needed. It's clunky, it detracts from your argument and your style, and you are adding that in your citation. That's why the citation exists, so that now you have a way of talking about that whole title, but now you just have that little citation. You're like, okay, so it was these authors. So don't ever use it. If you find yourself using it, delete it and add in your reference, right? Put in the reference itself, the in-text citation in that sentence. So really think about what is your claims and how you're going to make those. And I would love for you all to learn exactly how to do APA formatted references, but please don't. Please don't make that the hardest part of your paper. You should be spending more time on your writing than on your references. So use shortcuts. Google Scholar is great for that. Cal State San Marcos Biblio also has some really good, and you can get the citations already done in APA format. Don't do the hard work. Let it do it for you. So if you're really confused, I don't know what APA is, use these shortcuts to do your reference page. And if you don't know what APA is, come talk to me. I'm really happy to walk through your paper, talk to you about how to do citations properly. The very last piece of advice that I really want you to use is to make sure that you do a proper spelling and grammar check. One of the things that I often use is to actually have either Google Docs or Word speak it back to me. So here are 2 links to show you how to actually do that. I catch so many more errors when I have it read aloud. And so I really want you to do that because sometimes you hear things and you're like, oh, that sounds really weird, or I don't know what that just said. But while you're reading it, you might have a different experience with that. Second thing, use your spell checker and grammar checker. They do have that both in Word and in Google Docs. And I just started using Grammarly. And I kind of like it. So down here at the bottom, it gives you different things. So it'll tell you to disable this, right? Leave some feedback. There are sometimes issues that'll be for advanced users, but at least if you do the like basic Grammarly, it should show you something. So for example, so when I do a spelling mistake, here's a spelling mistake, hopefully this will show up and it'll show mistake is wrong. And it's not reading it as an actual sentence. Here's a spell mistake. Now goes to spelling. So it at least caught some things. It's not catching like, here's a spelling mistake, but at least it's catching some pieces of it. So it's really easy to check that in your paper. So I really recommend you do that. So those were my helpful hints and tricks. And I want to make sure that you all get that advice before we come back. So I hope you're enjoying your spring break, and I will see you later.